so much. Oh, awesome, cool, audio works. By the way, that was like really low energy earlier. Monday mornings, if like a team meeting starts off and everyone's like, yeah, good morning, Zvi, I actually make everyone like stand up. Given everyone's eating pizza, I think we can like save that till later. So thanks so much for having me. As said, I am the co-founder and CEO of Contactually. Contactually, we're a relationship marketing platform based far, far away in Washington, D.C. We are doing a few million revenue, got 44 employees, have raised 12 million capital over the years, including from my friends at Bull City Venture Partners, who invited me here today. So, let's see, will that work? It doesn't seem to be working. It doesn't seem to be advancing right now. So while we're trying to get the presentation working well enough, it's funny. I'm here today to talk to you about relationships, and it's funny that I'm here today to talk to you about it because we actually, I think you just do full screen, that'll work. No. It was like just working, right? It's funny that we're here talking about relationships because actually, I was brought to here by Jason and David, who invested in us back in 2015, but we actually met back in 2007. Right? Back like 3 companies ago, I was pitching a small little idea that obviously didn't go anywhere, but we kept in touch and obviously reconnected as I was, oh awesome, cool. As I was started out Contactually, raised around funding, and was really happy to have them involved. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today. Right? We're here to talk about not hard skills like how do we build a great product or how do we build a great sales process, but really the softer skills that end up being critical for an entrepreneur, and that's about building relationships. I always start off with our mission statement, and you'll hear me not today to pitch our product. I don't really care about selling our product. What I'm here to do is to sell you the idea that our relationships and who knows us is actually one of our most important assets these days. So we start off always with our mission statement. We believe that the most successful businesses in the world are built upon personal and authentic relationships with their clients and partners. And so probably something that you've already seen, starting your entrepreneurial journey, the relationships and the people you met, the investors you met, and the other entrepreneurs, that ends up being, you'll learn more and more later on, it's ended up being this incredibly important asset for you. So sorry if it's a little dark. It's really interesting. When we started Contactually, there was, and there's always been talk about networking, and it's going into a room and exchanging business cards. And I actually didn't start off that way. I'm actually I'm here on stage talking in front of a bunch of strangers, but I'm actually an incredibly introverted person. And when I first graduated college, I was told to go to networking events, and I laughed it off. Like, why would I ever go to a networking event? Instead, I would go to different meetups and make friends. I'd walk out with just like 2 or 3 people that I knew. And it turned out to be that was the transformative experience of my life. Building friends, but friends end up becoming my relationships, my network. And so I've seen this kind of false focus on you have to go out and build a network, but really what did we do back in middle school, high school, college? We didn't make networks, we made friends. Let's go back to that. And especially as we kind of meet more and more people these days, the ability to stay relevant and to understand, all right, among the 20,000 people that are currently in my address book, well, who are the ones that will actually go to bat for me? And who are the ones who I'll go to bat for? And especially nowadays, we're seeing this, this incredible transformation in the world, right? It used to be that, you would start off by learning things, and then you do things, and you build relationships out of that, and you build your career and your reputation. But we see all that's changing and changing faster and faster, right? I mean, nowadays, is what we know a competitive advantage? No, right? We can Google anything we want. Is what you do a competitive advantage? No, I mean, we were doing a podcast and I wanted a podcast producer. I was able to go on Upwork and find 70 people from around the world who said, yeah, I'm a great podcast producer, and they applied within 5 minutes. Right? So what we do is no longer our competitive advantage. So that really leaves who you know, right? And your relationships. When I kind of all of a sudden quit a job that I really had to leave overnight, and didn't really have any clear prospects. I was a great developer, and I had my friends. Right? Now, there are many other developers like me, especially in the DC area, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I started reaching out to my friends and just saying, hey, like I'm available for work. You know me. I've got a good enough reputation with you. Just let me know if anything comes up. And within 2 years, I built a business where I was working with Ford and CBS and Volkswagen and all these amazing brands and firms. And it's not because I knew some secret, I had some amazing technology. It's not because I was necessarily a better software developer. It was my reputation that powered us. And that's kind of what I'm hoping we can talk a little bit more about today. Now, the big challenge and the core thing that we fight at Contactually is, like most things, it's a depreciating asset, right? We meet someone for coffee, and then 2 weeks later, we completely forget who they are. The stat so we work with a lot of real estate agents, and the stats for NAR is while 85% of buyers say they work with their agent again, only 12% do. And that's shocking, right? And we kind of try and go back in your head and think, like, who did I meet with 2 weeks ago? Who is that entrepreneur who I met with a year ago? You might have to be digging through your calendar, kind of trying to piece together your life to figure out, like, well, what was I doing back then? And that's kind of what we're going about solving, right? I mean, we start off, having that initial introduction, and then, all right, maybe a month later, like, they think, oh yeah, I actually do want to buy a widget from you. But if they're kind of thinking a little bit further on down the line, that relationship has started to go cold, and that's where we miss out on all these key opportunities. And so that's what we set out to try and solve with Contactually, right? And I think for most people, everyone I think here knows that relationships it's something we should do, and networking is important, and building a relationship with investors, and investors invest in lines, not dots, and all these amazing things. But for so many people, it starts off as a New Year's resolution and ends right there, right? It starts off with the intent, yeah, of course I want to be, of course I want to be better at my relationships. Of course I know there are all these important people I should be talking with. Of course I want to record notes of the meeting I just walked out of. But do we do it? No, we get stuck in our email, we get stuck in our phones, we get stuck with our calendar, whatever is present at the moment. And that's kind of what we set out to go about solving, right? Is we know that a resolution is meaningless. Just having the intent to do something doesn't get you anything. And so coming up with a strategic plan or a strategic framework of which you can ensure that you are following up and you are staying in touch with the right people, with the investors, with the potential co-founders, with that amazing key hire that you may not be ready to hire 3 years down the line, that you're able to do that. And so Contactually, we've kind of started to pioneer this space. We talk about networking and relationships, and it really comes down to the whole idea of having a strategic process by which you are cultivating authentic relationships in order to grow your business. And side note, obviously I'm CEO, I'm an entrepreneur. Yes, Contactually was the idea I wrote down in my Evernote 5 years ago. Our big bet is that rather than kind of playing in kind of the world of every other CRM, is that if we establish our own market category, we can own it. So that's kind of the big bet that we're taking internally. And that's obviously what we're set out to solve, right? If we know that the biggest issue in our relationships is we lose touch with people, and people lose touch with us, therefore, well, how can we ensure that periodically over time we stay in touch with the right people, right? So rather than meeting someone for coffee and then hoping 6 years later they remember you when when it's time to raise your Series A, Maybe every quarter or so, send a quick email giving a quick update, right? Or you're tracking what they're saying on Facebook and you respond to something, right? It's the whole idea of, in order to maintain mind share, making sure you're periodically staying in touch with the right people. And it really comes down to three key areas. Who do I need to talk to? When do I need to talk to them? And what do I need to say? And if you're able to quickly answer those three questions every day and actually act on that, you've already started moving on your way and started making sure that you're building, maintaining those real personal, authentic relationships. So let's kind of dive into who do I need to talk to, right? Because again, we meet so many amazing people, and at the same time we know there are even more people that we should be talking to. So how do we figure out, how do we sort through the noise? And is anyone familiar with Dunbar's number? Okay, so an interesting test is if you were to kind of go home tonight and take out a piece of paper and try and write down everyone you know, or everyone you have a relationship with. Usually maxes out at somewhere between 150 and 200. I was able to do this a couple times, I maxed out at like 220. But the whole concept of Dunbar's number, and again, it's the research behind it, is we can, as human beings, we can probably only maintain around 150 active relationships at any one point in time. Now, contrast that with, let's say, the 20,000 contacts in my database, the 200 investors I've had to pitch over the years in order to grow Contactually, the 300 potential VP marketing candidates who I had to interview in order to find the right candidate, and we come up short, right? And so that's really where technology and process could and should come in to be able to assist us with that. And of course, so we meet a lot of people, right? We meet amazing people, and obviously I'm hopeful that one of the reasons you're here today is not just to listen to this idiot blather on for an hour, but to really obviously meet other people in the room. But we know through that, well, there are interesting people, right? And there are people that are not just interesting, but relevant to our business. And there are people who are potentially game changers to us at some point now and in the future. And so it's how do you sort through that? Because you might meet someone who's really interesting, but are they someone who's going to help you with your business? I don't know. There might be someone with a cool startup that you kind of really like and maybe you hit off with, but are they going to help you with your Series A? I don't know. And so that's kind of what we try and kind of get people to focus on, right? You have your overall network and the entire span of people that know you in some way. But then you want to think about, well, who are the people that can help us long term? And then who are the people you should engage with now? So obviously I've met many, many engineers as I've been trying to hire engineers and grow Contactually. Through that, I've come up with some people that I think are really powerful, and those are the people that I grab coffee with periodically. And then those are the ones that I reach out to and I say, hey, we have got a position open. Are you interested in applying? The 3 engineers we hired most recently over the past 6 months, I've been in touch with since 2013. That's a very hard thing to do, and I'm not very good at it, but it's what's necessary in order to stay competitive and stay relevant, right? So we walk everyone through this very simple process, right? You oftentimes, beginning of the year or whenever you're starting a new initiative, maybe raising Series A or going on a new venture or spinning up a sales process, identify what your goal is. Right? Let's say I'm a real estate agent. My goal is I want to get 6 more referrals this year. Well, I think it's important to identify the types of people who can help you, and then who fits those types of people. And that's different, right? That's different than maybe what we do otherwise, which is we stay in touch with whoever's most recent, whoever just came in the door, or we look one by one at everyone in the room or everyone through our database and figure out, are they important or not, or are they interesting or not? Instead, it's kind of thinking high level and kind of walking down from there. So again, I know that my goal is to hire a really great VP of product. Who are the types of people that can help me? Well, it's people who run other product-oriented companies and investors and potential VPs of product themselves. And then who are those types of people, right? So I don't stay in touch with, let's say, the recruiter or the relatively low-level PM at another company, right? In order to hire this, in order to achieve that goal, I kind of focus on the top and only stay in touch with those types of people. Next is when should I engage them? And we're going to take actually kind of we're going to deviate a little bit, and we're going to talk about something a little bit different, and that's habit, right? Who here feels they're really good at building habits? All right, who here flosses every day? Who here knows they should floss every day? There we go, right? And that's hard, right? It's hard, it's actually really hard to build and maintain great habits, and especially when it's something that is time consuming, especially when it's something that is even maybe work related, right? We come into the office and we instantly get sucked up in our email or the phone call or the calendar or whatever it's sucking us up. And so we oftentimes get so focused on the now that we lose track of what's important long term. And so habit is the only way to counteract that. We walk people through two really easy and quick tasks in order to counteract and build great habits. So you could do this associative task. If any of you have ever heard of the behavioral researcher B.J. Fogg, he came up with this. The whole idea is attaching this to something you're already doing. So again, for all the people who didn't raise their hand when I asked who floss, try the little experiment of memorizing in your head. Whenever I brush my teeth, I'm going to floss one tooth, just one tooth, and see where you go from there. And just associating it with something you're already doing has proven to work through research. And so we coach people saying, all right, well maybe getting people to use our product turns out to be the biggest challenge we have. It's not whether our product's any good. It's not necessarily getting leads or new business. It's literally when someone comes to the door, they know they should use it, and they don't. Right? And so we coach people. Yeah, so maybe after you open your laptop for the first time every morning, or after you triage your email for the first time, you then associate and you kind of go into your product and kind of do whatever you're supposed to do. The best thing that I've seen work is hacking your calendar, right? So I'm pretty sure nowadays, if you're not already, you will be very soon. Be a victim to your calendar, and so the ability to set recurring calendar appointments actually works really well. And then not only to set recurring calendar appointments, but actually associating with a reward. Maybe you only get your first cup of coffee after you follow up and send an email to two people you otherwise wouldn't. We work with real estate agents, and real estate agents, they know that if they got one more referral, that's usually another $5,000 in your pocket. Well, okay, great. Well, if it's another $5,000 in your pocket just to get one more referral, don't you think it's worth spending, rewarding yourself with $5 Starbucks if you do it, if you do this action every day? And go spend that money on Starbucks. You've obviously done something that's beneficial for your career. And like most habits, it's something you'll fall off the wagon, right? We all have good intentions. Again, we start off the year with those great habits. One of the best times to go to the gym is like January 6th, because by then, half the people have stopped going already. And most people don't go, right? Most people kind of feel the shame of all the messes and all the things that we haven't done yet. And we are unwilling to admit to ourselves that, yeah, we screwed up, but you know what? Let's go back. And so when you're thinking about those relationships, and I'm sure in your head you're running through, maybe the 2, 3, 10 people who you probably should be talking to, and probably should have a better relationship with, but aren't. Well, maybe just today, don't try and keep in touch with all of them. Just try and send an email to one person who you otherwise wouldn't. And obviously, we talked about creating a ritual. Quickly triage who you need to come up with. So I was on a panel with one of the top partners in Ernst & Young, and again, he has his ritual. He starts off every day, right? Not by using technology, not by using spreadsheets or anything like that. He takes out a piece of paper, he writes down the 10 people he wants to talk to today, he puts it in his pocket, and then he knows his day is not over until he opens up that, takes out that piece of paper, and then just calls or emails those people, right? Simple little rituals that you can apply to yourself. And then of course reward yourself, which we talked about, right? I think we should feel comfortable, thinking that rewarding ourselves for doing something, investing in the long term. The last thing is, how can I add value? So we know that there are many, many different people that we stay in touch with, and we have to be honest that they're not all equally as important, right? So for example, if I'm trying to hire a VP of marketing, as we just did, well, there's the VP of marketing who had applied to us 3 times already and had shown interest. Yeah, of course I want to stay in touch with them, but I don't need to invest as much time as him. But then there's, let's say, the former director of marketing for Netflix, right? I'd probably put him in legend. He's probably someone who I want to stay in touch with more often. And so that's where we think about, obviously, you may have fewer and fewer contacts, who are more important, but you're willing to spend more effort. And the hope is that as we spend more effort, the impact is high. Right? So for some people, it might just be a quick email, hey, just thinking of you. For others, it may be basketball tickets, or tell me a little about your problems and what can I solve. It's doing a lot of online research. And obviously, as you put in more and more effort, the goal is that the impact, the mind share you build them, is higher and higher. And again, we're not talking about a lot of work, right? Making an introduction between 2 people, it's sending a few emails like, hey, can I introduce you to X? Hey, can I introduce you to Y? And then just make the introduction, right? That's not a lot of work. And I can walk you through kind of a few really simple examples just to kind of convince you that, again, building relationships and really making a difference in people's lives doesn't have to be a lot of work. I'll go back to that in a second. So obviously, we're connected on Facebook probably, to a ton of people. I connect on LinkedIn to a ton of people, and it's kind of dumbed us down to the point where we think that all we need to do to show we love someone is just press the like button or press the thumbs up, right? But we, and this is, this was, some of the top relationship builders I know kind of, guided me on this. It's not necessarily whether you're doing more work, it's whether you're doing something different, right? So when I saw Donna, for example, who is someone who I do want to stay in touch with and do care a lot about, when I saw she just got off crutches, yeah, of course I could have just pressed like the other 385 people, or you could just choose to do something different. Again, it's not a lot more work, it's just something different that obviously makes a much bigger impact, so I'm not one of the 386 people that are sending a like. There's a guy named Steven down in DC who I saw he was incredibly well connected and had the ability to connect us to to some real key hires that we were looking to make. Again, as you can tell, I'm a CEO, I mainly think about hiring people. He had the ability to connect us to some real key hires. And I could have just left and the coffee meeting, sent him a thank you note, and most likely he would have ignored it and probably not helped us out too much because he meets a lot of people too. But as we do, we engage in small talk. And through small talk, I learned that his kid was in a free throw tournament that weekend, and his kid was really, really into basketball. $10 on Amazon, right? Showed up at his house. 2 years later, he's still emailing me, and in introductions to people who I want to meet, he still references that basketball, right? Again, $10 is nothing. It's nothing when you're thinking about building a company, the enterprise value that that person can bring. But what I did is I made it slightly more personal. Or so one of our top influencers, who again is incredibly well connected herself. As I was doing research for her for an interview, I reached out to her. I said, I read a few blog posts, and one of the things I learned is that she's really into kaleidoscopes, right? Again, pretty unique niche thing. And so yeah, of course, $35 on Etsy, right? Custom engraved with, with one of her favorite key sayings shipped to her, and now I have a fan for life. Again, small little things you can do that make a huge impact. So again, we talked about kind of 3 things, right? We talked about who do I need to talk to, when do I need to talk to them, and what do we need to say. And so it really comes down to just being personable, being valuable to them, and the hope is that the value comes back. Be different, and then overall be there. I kind of skipped over a slide earlier on, but one of the things that we always coach people on is, I walked you through a few examples that, again, took no more than a couple minutes and a few bucks in order to do. But the thing I want us to never be afraid of is just to say hello, right? So who remembers that app, Yo? Okay. Wow, so it really quickly disappeared, right? Yo was this really, really dumb application that you literally press a button on a contact and it just said a yo to them, just saying yo. And that to me is kind of the lowest social signal, but it works, right? It shows that for that split second you're thinking of them, right? And so I coach people, I do this all the time, or I'll send a text message saying, hey, just a few random people on my contact list. Or just send a just thinking of you, no need to respond to someone who you worked with in the past. Or an investor just saying, hey, by the way, thank you for that advice. Small little things make a huge impact. And again, the goal is just to maintain mind share. It doesn't have to be a mind-blowing introduction or email every single time. And again, as I kind of keep pushing, right, we have a huge bias for action. I always push that. We wouldn't be entrepreneurs here if we didn't have that bias for action. But as it pertains to our relationships, again, that's what we need to ensure we do that. No matter what, we're always taking action. We're always reaching out to a few people. There's one Fortune 500 CEO. I honestly forget his name, and he has a list of 500 people, and he knows that the entire year he needs to engage with each of those people at least once, right? And he could, of course, come up with that idea, come up with that New Year's resolution saying, I want to talk to the other 499 Fortune 500 CEOs. Instead, he's actually making the effort to implement that every single day. I want to wrap up with kind of a quick run through of the 10 types of relationships that we as entrepreneurs need to actually make sure we maintain touch with, right? So first off, your co-founders. Who here has co-founders? Okay, and I think as you've probably learned very early on that your relationship with your co-founder is just as, and I'm sorry to my wife, if not more important than your personal relationship. Right? And I found with my 2 co-founders that our best times were when we were communicating really well together, the best times in the company, and some of our worst times is not when we were doing the wrong things, but when we just weren't in sync, we weren't communicating well. Your investors, people invest in lines, not dots, and honestly, your current investors should be treated the same way, right? And it goes beyond having regular board meetings. It's calling a meeting for coffee. It's making sure that they share the wins. We have an attitude, and Jason I know is on our board. Jason has the attitude of whenever we have an interesting internal deck, we do some research, we send it on to our investors, say, hey, by the way, we just learned this. Isn't this cool, right? Your customers, right? You don't want just customers. You want rabid fans. So the little kaleidoscope I sent to someone, she's actually a customer of ours too, right? So again, it's not just about providing a great product, it's providing a great experience. And actually, we as a company, we've failed on this, and we've learned from it. We used to actually provide only okay customer service, right? We would answer your questions, but that's it. And now we have a 15-person customer success team who really is all about saying, you know what, yeah, I can teach you how to use the product and we'll do that, but tell me how your business is doing. Tell me how I can help you. That's made such an amazing impact on our customer retention among those tiers where we're running that. Now it's now something we know we need to expand and figure out how to expand to the other 10,000 customers we work with. We talked about prospective investors. Obviously, invest in lines, not dots. Do people know what that means, by the way? No? So there's a great Mark Suster blog post about this, and I highly recommend you read it. You can literally Google lines not dots and you'll kind of find it. The whole concept is that investors aren't looking to invest in your company at your current state. They obviously want to know what the trajectory is. And oftentimes one of the best ways to judge the trajectory and to judge your team's ability to achieve that is to also look at past history. And so the best piece of advice that I gave is that when you're going out to raise funding, well, the best way to build a relationship and to close investors that you're trying to work with is honestly to meet them when you're not trying to raise capital. Right? Is to meet them well before. And so some of the investors that actually joined in our most recent round, again, I met some of them before I even started the company, before we even had the idea. Some of them at the inception of the idea, some of them when we closed our previous round. And staying in touch with them periodically, they're able to see, oh, cool, well, Contactually it's gone from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 million. Wow, there's obviously something here that obviously warms up that relationship and shows that you're the team that can execute on it. Your team, they're people too. I've learned that they're more dependent on us as founders than we realize. And some of the times we've struggled is when things on the surface look good, but it turns out people have some of the same fears. So for example, whenever I'm going out and raising a round of funding, I almost have to over-communicate our funding process to the team because they see, well, Zvi's out of the office a lot. I wonder how these pitches are going. Are we going to be able to raise funding? Are we going to crash? Are we going to run out of money? And so some of our lowest morale times have actually been like when I'm out on the road, starting to close big rounds of funding. So ensuring that we're engaging with them is really important. And as all of you build amazing companies, I recommend that you spend just as much time on your internal team as those external. Tools like Tiny Pulse and anonymous surveys and everything like that make such a big difference. Your family, right? I was working with an entrepreneur and coaching him, and he was having a rough time. He had like 6 weeks of cash left in the bank, and he was really feeling down the dumps. And yeah, he was hopeful he was going to be able to raise a round. And you could tell that as a person who's broken, right? And I kind of had to remind him, like, well, aren't you getting married in 2 weeks? Like, don't you have all these amazing things happening? You have this amazing life. You're spending all day long achieving your dreams, and you have, this amazing family that you're building. Don't you have something to be proud of? Again, so stay in touch with that. Your community, right? Whether it's for jobs, and even when we're not hiring Contactually, like we make sure that we're always out at every event, even though we don't want to be, even though we have theoretically better things to do, but just to make sure that we're out in the community. Building buzz actually does matter a lot, not necessarily for customers, but you want something your team can be proud of. You want that support network and knowing that when you're trying to make that key hire, yes, that person's out there, and even cheer, making your team feel really good. And finally, your mentors and advisors, right? I met with 3 of them so far while I was in Durham today, and they can obviously the scar tissue that they build and the scar tissue that I build is valuable to others. They can provide sounding boards where they're not necessarily giving you great advice, but they're helping take the great advice out of you. And your competitors. Who here talks to their competitors all the time? Cool. All right, one person. All right. I've learned more from our competitors than from most of our customers. Right? I think you gain an incredible amount by talking to your competitors. You find that they're entrepreneurs. They're someone who is trying to achieve the same vision as you, and through that you can learn things. I've spoken to ones who we end up partnering with. I've spoken to people who have ended up shutting down their company, honestly, and passing their business on to us. And if not, like you gain really useful market intelligence. When we founded Contactually, there were probably about 10 other companies that had either recently tried to do what we did or were doing what we did. And we spoke to all of them, and we learned an amazing amount, and that's actually kind of some of the key parts of Contactually is because of that. So obviously I wish you all the best success, and I'm hoping that you kind of walk away with that key insight is that you really need to treat your relationships as an asset. And whether you're using software, whether you're have an Excel spreadsheet or stack of business cards on your desk, or that piece of paper in your pocket of important people, it's all about action, having strategy. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Or we can eat more pizza.